This is False Start, college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm John Buhler, staff writer, fansided.com. I'm joined today by a man who knows how to rise above the noise and confusion, but only for a moment, and the moment's gone. Cody Williams, content director, fansided.com. How long to the point of no return? How long? How long to the point of no return? How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Just feeling like some dust in the wind. Honestly, I can't think of dust in the wind without thinking of old school and my boy Blue. Like that's the only thing that comes to mind at this point.
No, I know. It's Will Ferrell was just I didn't really get old school when it first came out because I was too young. And then I
Mhm.
realized now, like, oh, he hits on everything perfectly. Like I guess I didn't understand Will Ferrell until like, I don't know, like 16 years old, maybe when I really watched Anchorman all the way through.
Oh yeah, I mean, and like now that we're in our mid 30s, like old school hits a little bit differently. Like I think we probably all still have dreams of just like abandoning all responsibility and going and living in a frat house in our mid 30s.
Uh, I don't know if it's quite the come up or come down for Todd Phillips, but yeah, he had a cameo in that movie.
He did indeed, and we'll leave it there because I don't.
I think it's still better than a Joker Full to Do or whatever the hell it's called.
I have not seen it, but from what I've heard, oh my God.
It's like you think you can gog this. You think you want to do this? Bring some Lady Gaga out here. Star ain't born. Star just crashed. Death Star collision, man.
Star Wars, Joker Folly, dude.
Like I'm serious. River Phoenix is probably just looks at Joaquin like he will wake up on Halloween when he's when he can recommit when he can talk to the rest of the world. And be like, Joaquin, what the hell, man? Why did you make this?
Have you seen the clip of, I think it was at the premiere where it looks like Joaquin Phoenix leans over to Lady Gaga and goes like, "This is horrible."
That's good.
Oh, what a joke of a movie, no pun intended.
We obviously false started here a little bit. We're gonna do some first and 15 because clearly the Batman franchise didn't mean enough to Todd Phillips, and it don't mean enough here with the SEC. We got a lot of interesting things going on here. We got Georgia versus Texas in Austin. Absolutely terrified that game, but I've kind of gone through the five stages of grief there, so I'm in better spirits than expected. We got a sad boy bowl between Alabama at Tennessee. Loser of that game is going to be in a really tough spot. And then also the battle for the boot. Yeah, I think LSU might overlook Arkansas and pay for it dearly.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. I guess we'll start with Georgia Texas. It is, one of the biggest games of the season, not just of
Yeah.
the week. It's one of the biggest games of the season. One of the ones we had circled coming into the year. And I'm of two minds looking at this game. On one hand, I think Texas has looked like the most dominant team in the country from top to bottom this season. However, it was the more I look into it, who have they really played at this point? Because like, the Michigan game, yes, it was in the big house, yes, it was big, but we know Michigan is mid to say the least. Like they're 4-2 right now. They probably should be 3-3. Like this is not a good football team. Then you look at Oklahoma, who they dog walked, no doubt about it, in Red River, but we don't think Oklahoma's any good either. So like they aren't necessarily the most battle tested. I will say that like they do get this game in Austin, which I think is definitely in their favor. I think that Austin is a tough place to play, and I think Texas tends to play a lot better in Austin as well. The other thing that I keep coming around, the other thing I keep thinking about is really in terms of Georgia, we have one half that's truly, truly concerning. And that's the first half against Alabama when Kalen DeBoer really caught them on their back foot and took advantage of that. And Georgia still almost won that game. Late in the fourth quarter, they had a lead. And then obviously the lead, dissipated with Ryan Williams doing Ryan Williams things. But I do think that like Georgia might be kind of underrated going into this matchup because you look at what they did to Clemson. That win looks more and more impressive with each passing week as Clemson
Right.
continues to thrive since that loss. So, like, I do think that Georgia might be a bit underrated. Texas might be slightly overrated, but I still don't know what the hell's going to happen in this game.
I was thinking about this with Texas. I'm like, none of their wins are overly impressive. Like, I never bought into Michigan, didn't really buy into Oklahoma. They obviously crushed them. Mississippi State may be 1-5, but they're a lot better than I thought. I mean, yes, they played Georgia very closely.
Mhm.
But got some Georgia thoughts there too. UTSA is not really any good. Their best win, honestly, might be over ULM.
Honestly, yeah, ULM's looking pretty damn good, and that might be their best win. And I mean, again, I do think it is to Texas's credit that none of these games have been close. Like none of these
No,
games have been nail biters. Like they've handled their business. And like for the Michigan game, like yeah, I'm not really impressed by them stopping Michigan's offense and holding them to 13 points with a garbage time score baked in there, but they did put 31 up on that defense. So like I do think like I don't think there's necessarily any reason to doubt Texas, but they have not been as battle tested as you might think, especially if you just look at the numbers by the teams that they played on the schedule.
for sure. And I have Texas as number one team in the country. I don't know exactly how you had your top 12. If you have that off the top of your mind, we could share that later. If not, don't worry about it. It's
I
fine.
do not, but I would have Texas at number one. I still think they have a better body of work than Oregon at this point.
Yeah. So I had Texas one, Oregon two. I think I had what Iowa State three, Clemson four. It was somewhere like that, and then I think I had
Yeah,
Georgia at like six, and Ohio State at five. Is kind of Bama went down to eight, and then I
yeah,
think Penn State seven's where I had that. It was not a hard way to put it together. I mean, I figured if you did it, it would take you maybe 5 minutes.
yeah, 100%. Like I think it's pretty clear we're at least getting some hierarchy separation. Of course, the next couple weeks could throw that into complete chaos because in 2 weeks we have Penn State playing Ohio State. So we'll see what happens in that game. Like that could throw everything for a loop. But I do think in this game, the other thing that I have been thinking a lot about is one of the reasons I've been as high on Quinn Ewers as I have been over the years is how he performs in these games. Like Quinn
Yes,
Ewers is a big time performer. When the lights are bright, he's stepped up and really shown a lot of positive things for what he can be. Has that been consistent in games against lesser competition? No. I mean, we watched him throw a pick again, like in the first drive, his first drive back against Oklahoma, but then he tightened up and it was never in doubt. So like I do think that Quinn Ewers is built for this. Then I started looking into it a little bit. I'm still a Carson Beck believer. It's not an anti Carson Beck belief, but what's Carson Beck's best win in his career to this point?
um, I mean, I try to think about it this year. Don't I mean he looked really good at times, like versus honestly, last week in Mississippi State, he threw for a lot of yards there. Clemson was pretty impressive. I would say
Yeah.
in his first year starting, being able to win that one in Auburn when it was just not happening
Yeah.
was really good. I think he had a really good game against Kentucky, but again, it's not like yours, where like yours is like, oh, I'm showing up and showing out in Red River. Oh, I'm showing up and showing out in the Big 12 championship, things of that ilk. I'm showing up and out Michigan. And you're absolutely right. That's Quinn Ewers' best attribute. I mean, he's got the Howard server right arm, but he's also incredibly brittle, so that kind of cancels it out. But I would say that like this is probably his ability to win in winning time
Hmm.
with his talent. It's like, like Stetson Bennett used to be able to win in winning time, but it's like this, but way more talented.
Right. It's that without the former walk-on label, basically.
Right. Yeah. With the kombucha tea label or the kombucha tea that I
For sure. Yeah, definitely not the Bud Light label that Stetson Bennett was for sure rocking.
Yes. So I guess I'll figure out this. I mean, I've got this game for just like Novocaine later, and I'll pick it then. I don't know if you do either, if you do
As
too.
do I. So yeah, I'll pick it then as well.
So this is so Texas is the only undefeated team left in the SEC. And Georgia's got one loss to Alabama. Obviously, it's not a playoff elimination game for either. But like, let's just kind of say like what happens, like what are the vibes of Texas wins and what are the vibes with Georgia wins for both teams? So let's say Texas wins. How are we feeling about the Longhorns and how are we feeling about the Dogs?
So I think if Texas were to win, my takeaway would be my suspicion of right now, and maybe this is just bringing my bias into it, but I do think that like to me, Texas looks like the one team capable of separating itself from this kind of like very congested top tier of college football. And so if they were to beat Georgia, and also like I I know that the odds don't matter, but so much. But if they were to do it and cover, like win by a touchdown, it's not some fluky, like close game. I do think that if they were to like handle their business and win this one, I would affirm Texas as like the team to beat because I think they would have passed every test that you put in front of them to this point. For Georgia, I don't think it would make me feel that much differently, frankly, because I think this Georgia team, what we've seen, they have the talent more talent, as much talent as anyone in the country. They have as much talent to play with anyone and have a game and beat anyone on any given Saturday, any given night, whatever whatever night you're playing on. Because I know there's college football playoff games on a freaking Wednesday, so like, but like they can beat anyone. But at the same time, like I do worry about the Mike Bobo effect. I do worry about is Glenn Schumann a bit overrated? So like I don't think my opinions on Georgia would change all that much.
No, it's a little bit more in like both directions. I would say if Texas wins, they are my clear pick to win the national championship right now. This would really reaffirm that. I will say though, I am a little worried. I'm afraid if they get this win, it will kind of go to their head. Like it seems like the Ohio State win is going to Oregon's head. It just with Dylan Gabriel out there doing cartwheels in the street, like it's like that team's going to lose, and that team's going to lose bad, and they're not going to win a national championship.
They
I
are
could just
going to West Lafayette. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
I think they got Penn State later too. They got Illinois. We'll talk about Illinois here in a little bit too. That's a very interesting team as well to watch. But also like if you beat Georgia here, you might play tight at some point in the schedule. You might play tight against A&M. You might play tight against Vanderbilt. You might play tight against whomever you play in Atlanta. But you win this game, you pretty much have locked up a spot to go to Atlanta. Obviously Texas would retain the number one seed. I think Georgia would go from like five down to like eight or nine, probably.
Yeah, I think that's probably about right.
If Georgia wins, they probably go to two because I think
Hmm.
Oregon would still be one, and then
Yeah.
Texas would probably go to five.
Yeah, something like that. Like I don't see a world where Texas drops out of the top five, especially with the resume they have. Again, you can pick apart that resume, but it is still two ranked wins that they have, and they've covered. I mean, they've won every game with large margin for the most part. So like I do think that it's hard to dock Texas. I do think like the point you made that this isn't a college football playoff elimination game is kind of the big takeaway I have from it is that like a win can really boost both of these teams, whereas I don't think a loss is hugely detrimental. Like that's kind of the big game feel. I mean, we just saw it last week with Oregon and Ohio State. Ohio State wasn't terribly penalized because they played a good game and like yeah, they came up short on the road by a point. So like you're not going to kill them for doing that. So I do think that's kind of the same feel for this game coming out of it.
Yeah, Georgia's going to make the playoff if they go 9-3 with their schedule. That's just how it is.
Hmm.
They basically need to win one of the three between Al. No, they've already lost to Alabama. They have to be one of the three between Texas, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. And if they do
Hmm.
that, and if they hold serve against Georgia Tech, you're probably going to get in as like the 10. Texas, I don't know if they have the harder schedule, but like they're going to get in at 10-2, 9-3. You're playing with fire there at that point, but 11 wins, they're going to get to Atlanta with 11 wins, probably, I would think.
Most likely, yeah. And I mean, so let me ask you this, and then we can go on. I think we'll expound or expend. That's the word. Expend a
Yeah.
little more less oxygen on the other two big SEC games because I think they're at least a little less intriguing from my perspective. But if if Texas wins this game, I know you said you're worried about them getting a big head about it, but I guess I'll ask it this way. Do you think that it increases or do you think it increases their chance to go undefeated? Because like we've talked about, like it's going to be really difficult to go undefeated. And looking at their schedule, there's a lot of spots where they could trip up. But like I'm of the mind, I believe in Sark and this coaching staff and the culture that they built. Like I don't think they get big heads at Texas at this point. And like I don't think we're gonna see the Sam Ellinger beating Georgia. We're back. No, I don't think we're gonna see that. They know they're back and they're just handling business.
It is in their blood, though. This is capable. They
It's
they
true.
they've
It's true.
they did this. They built this. That's it's like the Byzantine Empire. Like it's built on those columns. That's what Texas is known for. That's a great question, and I kind of feel it's a catch-22 because
Hmm.
like I don't. I think if they win this game, this creates the pressure that we don't necessarily know that they can handle it. We think they can. It hasn't been quite proven yet in
Yeah.
terms of like going 16-0. No one's ever done that. It's why I said if anybody's going undefeated this year, it's going to be either Oregon or Penn State. Probably not Indiana. I just feel that like they're not the upper middle of the Big Ten's not there yet. Like the Big
Yeah.
Ten's only getting four teams in. It's just
Yeah.
mathematically it doesn't work. But like if they lose, obviously they're not going to go undefeated. But I think this gives Sarkisian, Pete Kwiatkowski, who's probably the best defensive coordinator in college football right now, ammo to go 15-1 or 14-2 and win the whole thing. I feel that like I almost feel like Texas is better served losing here to win a national championship in a weird way, just because like you'll have an edge. And I think they can do it because they may be the most talented team in the country, but like Georgia's playing with house money right now because they're not expected to win. Haven't they? It's a very interesting spot for Texas. If they play like they're up to their ability, they'll win by 2 scores, but they might lose by a touchdown. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm expecting the game to be.
I think that's right. I don't see a world where either of these teams wins by a blowout. I think that's definitely fair. Like I think these two teams are too damn good for that, frankly.
And I don't know if it's the same thing with third Saturday in October. It's not an elimination game. It's technically not because both are still in it. It's close.
Mhm.
But the loser of this game in Knoxville between Alabama and Tennessee is going to be that's got to be the worst vibe of anywhere in the Power Four. Like I think it's got to be worse than Kansas, and we'll talk about Kansas later. But like it's like you lose 2 of 3 and you almost lost the game in between.
Yeah, I mean, it's technically it is not a college football playoff elimination game. Vibes wise, it absolutely is. Because whoever loses this game, especially depending on what it looks like I'm ready to write whoever loses this game off because this is a prove it game for me. Like I don't have faith in either of these teams based on what I've seen over the past couple of weeks. Like they both got upset and then went and almost got upset again, like you said. So like they are they are both imperfect teams that I do think still have high ceilings, but I think that in the SEC hierarchy, these two teams also have the most variance of any other team in the SEC. Like we've seen Alabama, you know, hang 30 on Georgia in the first half, but then that second half came out and the offense
If
didn't do a whole hell of a lot and the defense got shredded. So like I do and like we watched Diego Pavia shred the defense. So like this defense is still a problem. And then on the flip side of that, can Nico take advantage of that? Because we have quite serious questions about Nico at this point. But I'm working in Tennessee's favor. I do have a lot of faith in this defense, even in their loss, and even flirting with disaster against Florida. The defense was still nailed, still allowed under 20 points in both of those games. So like they have the speed on the edge to kind of contain Jalen Milroe a bit better than a lot of teams that have played Georgia have played Alabama to this point. So like I do think that like it's an interesting battle of styles and what these two teams are because they're both so imperfect that there are areas to be taken advantage of, but I'm not sure that either team is able to fully take advantage of it.
no, the winner of this game has to feel pretty good about their chances of making the playoff
Hmm.
because at that point, like I don't think 9-3 you're getting in with either of these teams. I just don't
Yeah.
think that like the resume is there. If you're Alabama and you lose, so you will have lost you would have given up the massive lead to Georgia and win a barn burner where you should have won anyway. You lose to Vanderbilt. You almost lose at home to South Carolina, and then if you lose to Tennessee, that means you have to beat LSU and Mizzou to get in,
Hmm.
and you can't screw up versus Auburn. Like there's no margin for error at that point. Like your playoff percentage chances are like 5%.
Yeah, and let's not forget that they were also pushed into the fourth quarter by South Florida, which,
Yeah.
anyone who's I would hope that the college football playoff selection committee is looking at that as well because that's something. And you know what? For this game, that's also interesting because who coaches South Florida? Alex Galesh. Who is
Yeah.
he a disciple of? Josh Heupel. So like,
Disciple.
yeah. So we saw a Josh Heupel offense, the veer and shoot, a version of it. Give Alabama's defense some problems. Byron Brown missed a lot of throws in that game. If Nico's able to hit those throws, this actually could get ugly for Alabama. So like right now, I don't have this game for just like Novocaine, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm picking Tennessee to win this game. I'm not like
Ooh.
100% confident in it, but I think that I like Tennessee's defense a little bit better, and I like them. I like how they match up with Alabama just a little bit better. This isn't like I would still probably say Alabama has a higher ceiling than Tennessee, frankly, but I think matchup wise, stylistically, this is going to cause Alabama quite a few problems.
Yeah, Tennessee's defense has been the most consistent part for these two teams. I do have this in just like Novocaine, so I'll make my pick at that point later on in the show. It's like, but if you go to the Tennessee's perspective, so you win Oklahoma, you let them back in. It's the exact same thing with Alabama with Georgia, except Oklahoma's not good. You go on a bye,
Right.
you overlook Arkansas, your offense was listless, and then you go and then you play with your food. You almost lose at home to Florida. If you lose to Alabama, then you have to beat Georgia and you have to beat Vanderbilt.
Mhm.
And at that point, I think people will start to turn on Josh Heupel, particularly if the offense looks bad, because Nico has not looked good against SEC competition this year.
Yeah.
The field, it's moving too fast for him, and I've started to wonder if SEC defenses have figured out the veer and shoot a little bit because it doesn't translate to the NFL. There's no route
It's
tree.
No, it's entirely possible. Even if there's not a route tree, these Tennessee wide receivers, I still can't run it. That's one of the bigger problems I've seen is these wide receivers are not very good. I think Squirrel White looks hurt to me. I don't know if you've seen
Yeah,
the same thing, but like that's not the same player I watched play last season. The dude who I was excited to watch this year. I that's a really interesting point. It brings up something I of course, I'm going to bring him up, but Bud Elliott was talking the other day about
yeah,
he mentioned the idea of like when Tennessee hired Heupel, it was supposed to be kind of like a field leveler after the Pruitt debacle, and it's supposed to be something like, okay, this offense will at least like make us competitive while we have these sanctions. Then the 2022 season happened with Hendon Hooker, and the expectation kind of got raised. But if you look back at the expectation when Heupel was hired, it wasn't like most people did not see it as a long-term fix.
no.
And you're definitely right. Like there is major potential for Knoxville to like revert to that mindset if they were to lose this game and if they were to kind of fall on their face down the stretch this season.
The only problem with that is he and Danny White, the AD, that's kind of like a, in tandem deal. Like they both left UCF to go take over this mess with Philip Fulmer and Jeremy Pruitt.
God
Uh,
almighty. What a mess it was.
yeah, just the Tennessee of it all. But yeah, the loser of that game is not going to have any cigars, and it's not going to be close. It's going to be no cigar.
No cigar for sure.
And then I guess finally, before we move on to the next topic here, Battle of the Boot. I'm really worried about LSU. When I was doing them as my rankings, I had them in as the 11th spot because I'm like, whoever wins Magnolia is going to be 11, and I don't feel great about it.
Mhm.
There is a chance that LSU may be just a complete fraud. Like they kind of won that game fluky. It kind of felt that Ole Miss gave it to them. And if you go in there and you think you can beat and just cakewalk Arkansas, you lose.
Yeah.
It's just
Which we've seen to this point.
it's in Fayetteville too. And Sam Pittman's going to coach loose, and Brian Kelly is going to screw himself Tom Coughlin purple because Robert Saleh's not there to valet park his car.
We hate it for him. You absolutely hate to see it. But no, it is. I'm interested to see, especially after what Arkansas and specifically defensive coordinator Travis Williams was able to do against the veer and shoot against Tennessee and against most of the teams that this Arkansas team has played to this point, honestly. But like, for as good as I think Garrett Nussmeier is, I think Kyron Lacey is the only difference maker on that LSU defense. I think that offense, or sorry, on that offense, I think the LSU offense is super one-dimensional. They cannot run the ball. The offensive line's good, but like Arkansas has pass rushers to test that for sure. So like I do wonder if they're able to really cause Nussmeier, who for as high as we are on him, is not a mobile quarterback at all. He's pretty much a Manning back there, just a statue, and not Arch either, Eli or Peyton, maybe even Cooper. But like he is Cooper at this age, to be clear, not
Yeah.
Cooper in his younger days.
Post injury Cooper.
Yes, exactly. But like if they're able to limit that LSU or that LSU offense, then LSU's defense has looked better. I was impressed by what they were able to do in Magnolia, slowing down Ole Miss at the times they did, particularly in the fourth quarter late, like when they needed to hold them to a field goal, bend don't break. They were very good at that, but I still don't fully trust the LSU defense quite a bit. And like I think the thing that we keep forgetting or people keep overlooking with Arkansas is Bobby Petrino knows what the hell he's doing, man. Like he's a crazy MFer, but like he is a very good offensive mind.
What was like South Park with Mel Gibson? Like the man knows up, the man knows a strategy, the man knows a plot structure.
That's right. That's Bobby Petrino to a T.
I do not have this game for Jalen, and I'm picking Arkansas to win because
Okay.
I feel the home crowd's going to get into it. LSU, I'm just like, They're still undefeated in SEC play. They've nearly lost to South Carolina in a game they overlooked. I kind of have some thoughts about Ole Miss, and I think the big thing is I think Jackson Dart's just Bo Nix. It's the same thing.
Yeah. He is slightly more likable, Bowden.
We were almost gonna dog sit some dogs. Jackson and Zayden.
At least it's not their children's name. That's all I gotta say.
I asked Arizona State podcast, like, what's one of them? It's like one of them's a poodle. I'm like, absolutely not. No, no.
Would prefer to absolutely not.
I'd prefer to go to hell than do that because I'm just
For sure.
maybe it's wonderful, but I've had really bad experiences with those things, especially the Skinwalker ones. Those things are
The
frightening.
Skinwalkers. So I do have a battle for the boot in JLN. So we'll tease that for then.
Yes, we'll tease that for then, and we'll tease you with some Big Ten energy. It's sweatshirt season here in Atlanta, Georgia, and the same sort of thing here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We got two games of note on the Big Ten horizon. I think I've got both for JLN. I think, do I? I don't know. They're all in JLN. Yes, they both are. So we'll talk about that later. Hoosiers and Huskers could be a hoot and a half. That's the Big Ten energy game of the week.
Oh, dude, 100%. Like the fact that this game has meaningful complications is just a wild scene in and of itself. But I'm honestly outside of Georgia, Texas, this is the game I'm most excited to see this week because Indiana, yes, they're undefeated coming in here now up to 16 in the AP Top 25, but their schedule's been soft. We're aware of that. Nebraska is the best team that they faced. Nebraska has the most talent that they faced. What's going to happen? It is in Bloomington, so Coach Sig has Bloomington turning into a place where there is a home field advantage, which I can't say that Tom Allen ever really accomplished,
No.
quite frankly. And but on the flip side of that, you have a Nebraska team that is so much improved from what we've seen previously in like the past decade, basically with the Huskers. But at the same time, what's their most impressive win? Because it may be Colorado at
Yeah.
this point, and like Colorado is better than we thought, but still a very flawed team. And at that point, they were even more flawed than they are currently. So like I haven't seen Nebraska against a team of Indiana's caliber either. So like this is another prove it game where I think like whoever wins this game, we have to start taking seriously as a college football playoff contender. Either way, because I think Nebraska is still in that conversation. I think Indiana is obviously already, sneaking their way into that conversation. But I think, what interests me for Nebraska on the Nebraska side of thing is digging into the numbers a little bit. Their offensive line has struggled a little bit with pass blocking. And my one concern that I've seen with Dylan Raiola to this point, he hasn't turned the ball over in these situations, but he does panic a little bit under pressure and kind of holds on to the ball a little long, tries to be Mahomes, which, we've seen that in multiple instances with him, but he tries to be Mahomes, and he's taken a lot of bad sacks this year. Indiana has one of the better pass rushers that we've seen. Again, level of competition, how real is that? What will it look like against Nebraska? But there's a lot of elements of this where I'm very curious to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, like Georgia, Texas, I go back and forth on this game. I do have this in JLN,
As
so
do
I'll
I.
talk about
So,
I'll talk about that later. This is obviously not an elimination game for Indiana as they're undefeated. It is for Nebraska, just because it's like you can't be the sixth or seventh best team in the Big Ten and expect to get in. Particularly if you lose the head-to-head to Indiana, you still got the Oregons, Ohio States, Penn States above you, and then you obviously you got Illinois over there who you lost to head-to-head. We'll talk about them in a second as well.
mhm.
That could be challenging, but like if the Huskers win, they're bowl eligible for the first time in nearly a decade since they went 9-4 under Mike Riley.
Yeah.
That'd be huge for them. And then Indiana, this is untrodden territory for them. They've had a couple of good years under Tom Allen, but nothing quite like this. So this
Yeah.
is really exciting. I'm trying to think what else I have from this game. Yeah, I think Nebraska is the best team Indiana's played up to this point, and I think it's the same thing for Nebraska. I think it's a clash of sumo titans. They're just a bunch of fat dudes pushing each other around. It's great.
So the other thing I wanted to bring up is yes, all these guys haven't played their entire careers together, but the experience difference between these two teams is something that stands out to me. You look at Curtis Rourke, who had a long, productive career in the MAC at Ohio before now coming to Indiana. You look at Ellison and Lawton, they're two running backs who have kind of led the charge out of the backfield. Ellison was at Wake Forest for 3 or 4 years, and then I'm trying to remember where Lawton was, but he played 4 years previously prior to this. So like, and you look throughout the roster, Coach Sig built this team through the transfer portal, but I think their experience is one of the things that he's been able to coach up because he's a damn good football coach. And so he's been able to get them to gel pretty quickly. So when I look at these teams together, you look at Raiola, still a true freshman. You look at their best weapons, still young guys like redshirt freshmen, true sophomores, that type of age. So like there is an experience gap, and I wonder how that's going to factor into the game as well.
Yes, experience is certainly on Indiana's side, but obviously I think with Matt Rule being a bigger known commodity, maybe he's recruited pretty well.
Hmm.
We saw what he's done at Temple and Baylor previously, so maybe the talent's just not as refined there in
Yeah,
Lincoln. So maybe this is the week where it happens. But obviously, Indiana's the favorite, or Indiana should be the favorite in this to win this
they are
game.
6.5 points.
Okay, I was sitting there trying to do the math. Like the numbers on the side of the team doesn't matter. It's what Vegas thinks. And very excited about that game to see where how that impacts the playoff picture. Nebraska would probably go from like having like 2% chance to again, I wrote this massive thing for fansided.com
Yeah,
yesterday, the week 8 Bible. So check that out, I guess, or not.
absolutely.
So that game's going to be interesting. And then we're going to move on to a quintessential playoff elimination game between Michigan and Illinois. Michigan is still in it because one of their losses is non-conference to Texas, and then obviously the other loss is to Washington, who's already out of it, and then Illinois' one loss is to Penn State by 2 scores. She's undefeated. I was looking at this. There's a really good chance that Illinois can make the playoff if they win this
Mhm.
game, and I think if they look respectable versus Oregon, they can go 10-2, and it's close.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely still in the cards, especially depending on what happens otherwhere. Like, you know, let's just paint out the scenario. Let's say Nebraska beats Indiana. Well, that's going to give Illinois a leg up on Nebraska and Indiana in that scenario, as like where their records are probably going to be at the end of the season. And you look at the other chaos that could come through, like, down the stretch in the ACC perhaps, or something like that, and knock out maybe a second ACC team from getting in. Like, we don't think the Big 12 is getting two teams in for sure. So, like, I do think that, like, the avenues could definitely open up for Illinois, especially depending, like, if they go into this game and they don't just beat Michigan, but they handle business, like then you really start have to thinking about it in a very serious manner as well.
Yeah, there's about 6 or 7 teams in the Big Ten who can still make it. And I'm technically Michigan is, but I don't buy into it for 1 second. But it's like you've got basically 4 spots. Oregon and Penn State right now, they're looking good. They're probably slated to, I think they play each other later, so we'll see what happens there.
2 weeks, I believe. Yeah.
Ohio State's got to figure it out. And they got to play Penn State later, so I think they all play each other. So we're probably going to get a rematch in Indianapolis at some point. So you're looking for that 4 spot. Is it going to be Indiana? Is it going to be Illinois? Is it going to be Nebraska? Someone will emerge. It's not going to be Iowa.
It is not going to be Iowa, I can assure you of that. But yeah, someone has to like take hold of this. And would it not just be like the most, like, just vibes wise, like would it not be the most Big Ten thing in the entire world for it to be an unassuming Illinois team that most people haven't spent a whole lot of oxygen on this entire year to be the one to get that fourth playoff spot? Like that just feels quintessentially Big Ten to me.
Yes, I do not have this game in JLN. I don't think. I'm trying to make sure I got this right. Actually,
I do not
no, I know.
either.
Actually,
So
I do. I do.
okay.
Yeah, never mind. Never mind. I'm like, there's one of them. Like, oh yeah, of the 5 we've talked about, I didn't have the boot in there. You did, and you didn't have whatever. So, okay, cool. All right,
So
got this.
I'll make a pick on this one because I don't have it in there. I'm going with Illinois. I just think that Illinois plays two phases of the game. They play offense and defense. Michigan does not play offense. So
No,
like that's where I come down on this. I think Michigan is, frankly, I think Michigan is what Illinois was with Ryan Walters as the DC. Like that's kind
yeah.
of what they are to me right now.
There's a chance that Illinois wins this by a lot
Yeah,
because
like
Luke Altmaier's good. Brett Bielema's a better head coach than Sherrod Moore. Brett Bielema's a Hall of Fame level head coach.
yeah.
Obviously, they don't have the talent of Michigan. It's also in Champaign-Urbana. I'll never gonna know what city that is. It's whatever. It's a part of Illinois I didn't go to, and I live in Chicago. That's okay.
That's right.
Any other thoughts about this before we go on to the next topic, which is going to be why? Well,
It's gonna be good stuff. Now let's move on to a little treat we have for everyone.
yes, we're going to do some 4-4-4. Yes, a lot of fours here. This is really hard. We're at that point of the year where we're like, okay, what's the worst team that can make the playoff out of each Power Four? There's technically an answer, and there's actually an answer. So we're each going to pick like the worst team we think can make it out of each league. Um, Not mathematically speaking, but like can really realistically do it. So, okay, let me see what the heck I had here. So I wrote about this for fanside.com.
Mhm.
So I have this put out there. So who is the worst team you think could make the playoff out of the ACC, Cody?
I may have gone a little too heavily into the mathematically, but the Duke Blue Devils could still theoretically make the college football playoff. I don't think they're very good. I think they probably beat Florida State this week, but like I don't think they're very good. But like they're a one-loss team. They're sitting there, and like the ACC is sitting there with a ton of chaos. I believe we still have Duke Miami to play, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. Manny Diaz revenge game. Would love to see that, and like. I do think Manny Diaz could outcoach Mario Cristobal in that game. That's not out of the realm of possibility. And so, like, of the teams that I have listed here, like, this is the one where I probably leaned in a little too heavily mathematically, but at the same time, I don't trust the ACC at all. So I think a chaos agent like Duke is more alive in this conference than they would be in other conferences.
I think that's totally fair. I almost consider them. They are. They basically have to beat FSU because the loss would be just too bad.
Hmm.
Did not have them there. I ended up settling on Pitt.
Okay. And I like that.
Because I think from this perspective, Clemson, Miami, and SMU, like they're not going to get eliminated with what
Yeah.
happens this week. They're too good. They're ahead of schedule. I also think Syracuse is really interesting too. They're on bye. They play Pitt next Thursday. Our colleague Mark Pallet may go to that game. I'm like, go. It's Eli
Dude,
Holston versus Kyle
absolutely
McCord.
go.
I'm like, just go. Go watch your boys play. That
Hell, I
game
want to
is going to be.
go.
I
Invite
want to
me.
go too. The problem with Syracuse is that loss to Stanford's looking worse and worse by the day. Pitt hasn't lost yet. They're going to. This might be the opportunity. I think they're going to play Clemson too. But it's just like the ACC, you don't really trust it too much. I think Clemson's really good. Outside of that, I don't know.
Yeah, like Miami is looking less trustworthy by the week. We'll see what they do at Louisville this week. I don't have that game in JLM, but I don't want to pick it because I'm scared. I don't know what the hell's going to happen. Don't trust either of those teams, frankly. I just don't trust the ACC. I think like you said, I think Clemson has separated itself as kind of the clear cut like favorite at this point. But outside of that, like who do you trust? Like I might trust SMU more than I do Miami at this point, frankly, since they made the switch at quarterback. So like I'm curious to see what this league looks like through down the stretch to see if anyone does separate themselves to kind of be like honestly being a steady Eddie in this conference might be the best thing. Like I don't need you to be a world beater. I just need you to not like S the bed in a bad moment.
Yeah, Miami Louisville could be nervous. I don't have that in JLN. I think that could go either way. Didn't want to pick that. That's a stay away. That's a stay
That's a
away. If
stay
there's ever,
away. That's our advice.
I'll throw one other team that I don't think can, but is interesting. That's Georgia Tech at 5-2. They have a
Mhm.
brutal schedule. They have as many wins as I thought they would do. I don't know how many more they've got in their schedule, but like, I mean, they could get Miami. I forget. I think they play Notre Dame this week, so that's not looking good.
That's probably not great.
Uh, but I think that is a traditional rivalry game, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting because it's like different sides of the coins there. That was a lot more exciting than I thought it would be. I think Big Ten might be a little more straightforward.
Yeah,
What do you got
Big
for
Ten for
that?
me, it was Nebraska. And I think Nebraska, like for all the reasons I just mentioned, talking about their matchup with Indiana, like there are reasons why this team isn't elite, and they're pretty obvious reasons to me at least. But like the pathway to the playoff is still absolutely there. Like they could still, and like I think the upside is still there as well. Like you mentioned it, Matt Rule is a good recruiter. Matt Rule has done a good job of getting talent in this building. And so like I think the upside is there. I think the youth and like the culture building is still just not complete, but that doesn't mean you can't have pop weeks in the weeks where you need to have those pop weeks. and like that could be enough to get them into the playoff.
I almost went with Nebraska. I went one ahead of them. I went with Illinois. I feel that
Okay.
Illinois just has an easier schedule down the stretch than Nebraska does. Plus, I think that Illinois has the head-to-head tiebreaker over Nebraska. That's about where the cutoff line is because the four other schools
Yeah.
above them are all pretty obvious with Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, and Indiana. And then below them is probably Michigan. At that point, who cares?
I mean, mathematically, I just want to throw this out there. I wrote it down. Iowa's still very much alive for the playoffs.
Uh, in the ACC, the worst team that's still alive, I think, is Virginia. And I think in the Big Ten, it's Rutgers, and they're like 0.1%.
Correct.
I think it's like I did the math with FPI. I think it's 71 teams are still alive of 134, and there's 29, which includes Ole Miss, who's on bye, that like are still in it no matter what happens this week. And then
Yeah.
there's 42 teams that are playing playoff elimination games this week. It's insane.
Love that. That's what I mean, they said there wasn't drama in the 12-team playoff. 42 teams playing for their playoff lives in week 8. That's what I live for.
Ari Wasserman, you were wrong, brother. That's okay. We love
It's all
you.
it's all good, man.
So that's good. Let's move on to the Big 12. This one's very, very interesting. There are four teams that I think are pretty much a lock at this point. Like they're not getting eliminated with no matter what happens this week. That would be BYU, Iowa State. I think K-State's still in that same boat too. And then I think Texas Tech, who's having a surprisingly good year. They're pretty much safe.
Yeah.
After that, whew,
A little bit of chaos, just a little bit. I went with Cincinnati, who I believe is also who you have for this as well.
yes,
And Cincinnati is not a great football team. I do think they are a good football team. They're better than I expected them to be for sure. Um, this is very much a marriage of mathematics and schedule. Like their schedule is not terribly daunting. And then much like the ACC, like kind of what we projected coming into the season. Both of these conferences, it's like at a certain point you just throw your hands up and say, I don't know, man, anything could happen. And so like as long as you're mathematically eligible and like we actually think you're a decent football team, yeah, you're alive.
mathematically, there's only four teams in the Big 12 eliminated. It's Baylor, Kansas, Oklahoma State, and Houston.
Yeah.
So and then it leaves the middle eight. And we're right there. There's two that I think are alive there. And they play them this weekend with Arizona State and Cincinnati. So
Mhm.
whoever wins that game, I think Arizona State's schedule is a little bit harder. They only have one loss to Texas Tech. And then Cincinnati has two losses are to Texas Tech and Pitt. So like, okay, those are two teams that could potentially win Power Four school championships. So like whoever wins this game between Arizona State and Cincinnati need to come up with a nickname for that rivalry.
I will say, unfortunately for Arizona State in that game, I don't know if you saw the news, but Jeff Sims is going to be the starting quarterback because Sam Levitt is
Oh,
injured. So, not exactly the big game signal caller that you want in there.
does this look like a bowl team?
Not anymore. Hell no, it doesn't.
Didn't know that.
Scatabo might get like 45 carries in this game, legitimately.
I'm here for it. So we're pretty much in lockstep there with the Big 12. I think the other thing is like Colorado's not getting there because I think the K-State
No,
loss is too punitive.
no, I'm right there with you. I mean, you know, I was impressed with the effort that Colorado put forth in that game. Like I liked their chances to pull off that upset in Boulder. They obviously didn't get it done, but I mean, like, I think it goes to show that despite all of the flack that I think Coach Prime and that program have deserved, they are improved from last year. They are definitely a much better football team than they were a year ago.
Same many wins as toes. They're going to go 8-4.
That's right, baby.
And then finally, the SEC. This is badass crazy because only two teams are mathematically limited. Also in the Big 12, I think the worst team that can still make it in is TCU. And no, they lost to
No,
Houston. I don't care.
no
Sonny
shot.
Dykes, I don't know, brother. But the SEC, there's only two teams who have been eliminated. That would be Auburn and Mississippi State. So the worst team that I think that still could do it is I think Florida probably.
So the worst team I think could realistically do this, and this is honestly just me taking a shot at them because I'm so done with them. I have Missouri down as the worst team that can make the playoff.
Yes.
Like I'm so done with this team. Like I think that I still like Eli Drinkwitz as a coach. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I think Drink is a dude, but I think he's been a little high on his own supply this year, quite frankly. And I think that the X's and O's losses that they've suffered, particularly on defense, like are very evident. I think that this offense has lacked an extra gear all year. Brady Cook just may have just had one out of body experience going back to old school, like Will Ferrell in his
I blacked
debate.
out.
Yeah, he blacked out what happened. I think that was Brady Cook in 2023 as a whole, based on what I've seen this year. So like I just don't have any faith in this Missouri team to do a whole lot. But at the same time, like I can't ignore the talent level. I can't ignore what happened last year and know that this team, this roster is still capable of going on a run. So like that's kind of why I have Missouri in that spot. Like Florida personally, I just don't think they're capable of anything
No.
like that, even if they're mathematically still there.
So like Florida's mathematically still there, so is South Carolina, so is Kentucky. So like those are no, that's not happening. If you look at the SEC, so Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, LSU, A&M, I think Ole Miss are safe this week because Ole Miss
Mhm.
is on a bye. So as much as I want to put Arkansas in there, the Oklahoma State loss looks worse by the week. And obviously
Yeah.
Vanderbilt, like they got to go 10-2 and they got to overcome that Georgia State loss, which isn't good.
Right.
And I'd rather have them in there than Missouri, which is this team I have, because unfortunately, I don't think Ole Miss is going to make it out.
I have a hard time. I got honestly what it comes down to. Ole Miss needs to beat Georgia to get in the college football playoff, and I
Mhm.
have a hard time seeing that happen. It's very simple logic, but that's my logic behind it.
Yes, and it's the same thing. Like Vanderbilt has to be Texas. I don't think that that's happening.
Hey,
I
hey,
will.
hey, hey! Don't sleep on Diego Pavia. That's all I'm saying.
No, no. Um, I think Arkansas is going to beat Mizzou this year. Feel
Oh, I
that's
like
happening.
that. I like that.
And obviously, I think Missouri, Alabama may be the game potentially we do it after. Obviously, what we come and do after Georgia and Texas this week. So maybe Mizzou, Alabama is the next one. It hasn't been decided yet.
Yeah, we'll figure it out, but we've got some plans.
But I think the SEC is a little more straightforward than I thought. The only thing that's really weird, so I think FPI gives Mizzou like about a 14% chance to make the playoff, and Ole Miss is 25, which I think is the highest team on there that we're like, it's just not going to happen. It's like
Yeah.
that's everything else is like, okay, if they've got 5%, can they do it? This is like, I don't trust him. I don't trust Mizzou. I don't trust Ole Miss at all.
Well, so I think that I just knowing what I know about those probabilities and how those are formulated, I would venture to guess a lot of that has to do with Missouri's only played two conference games to this point. They're one
Right.
and one in the SEC, and like even though Ole Miss has lost two of their three conference games, like they still have a conference game, an extra conference game under their belt. So like I think that's probably baked into that a little bit.
I was trying to figure that out. I'm like, oh, they played 7 games where most people have played 6. So like they're
Mhm.
obviously on a bye. Very few teams are on bye. It's like Ole Miss, Pitt, and Syracuse are the only ones that immediately come to mind.
North Carolina's on a bye, thank God.
That's true. Yes. Congratulations.
I don't have to watch the Tar Heels. It's a big week for me. Or the Cowboys. Honestly, this is going to be the most stress-free weekend of my life.
Not so much. I got Texas and then I got the Seahawks.
Yeah, it's you're living a different life than me this weekend.
I had Braulio Perez on the Blog and Dirty podcast yesterday. He covers the Giants. He obviously grew up in Seattle and loves the Hawks too. And he's like, yeah, it's not going good right now. They've lost 3 in a row. And I'm like, great. But that seems like we're due for a Kirk Cousins dud. So I'm putting that out in the universe. And we may need to be humbled. And then we got the Bucks coming up. So maybe we're 4-4.
Nah, I've got Falcons in this one by a wide margin. Seattle's
I
defense sucks, bro.
I did read that. So I feel a lot better about that. Yeah, yeah. Take the Falcons -3. So, any other thoughts with 4 before we move on to the next topic that I think is just what we actually really want to talk about today?
It is. I think it's the what we were born to talk about. No, I'm done with 4 for 4. Like, I think it is interesting to like look. You know, there are still a lot of elimination games in the 12 team playoff. I'm still enthralled by like the possibilities of it, and I think this is a good way of examining that a little bit. Like the teams that you know normally like in the 14 playoff would have been written off like probably 2 weeks ago, frankly. And the fact that we can still mention them as having a chance, whether or not that's a good chance, case by case basis, but like there is still a chance.
Totally. I guess I'll say it just because I wrote it. Like anytime someone says like, okay, who can get eliminated this week or who's still in it, you have to go all the way through. Like there's no other
Mhm.
way to do it because even this exercise, like who's the best that can still make it? It's just a thought you and I and other people have probably had. You have to go to, you got to sift through a lot of crap to figure this out because
Yeah,
otherwise
you
you're not
do.
doing yourself justice.
Yeah, you do. Oh man,
That's why they pay me to do this, I guess,
that's right.
or write about or write Steelers rumors. Either way, who cares? Because I mean, like, let's be fair, man. We are living in a simulation right now. Yes. We were bored of talking about this. Cody is coming back from vacation, wedding, and Western Carolina things. Mike Gundy got headbutted by one of his cattle. He was not able to do he was not able to do the press conference ahead of BYU in person because he got headbutted by a cattle. His eye got all bloodied and his pretty little face got messed up. He may be concussed, and they got to play BYU on Friday in Provo. So, and honestly, I'm not rolling the pokes out. This is a Mike Gundy game. Like this is a game that he would win.
I mean, you know what? Are we absolutely sure that a concussed Mike Gundy is that much different from a not concussed Mike Gundy? Because I'm not.
No, it's like a souped up Mike Gundy. It's just a better version.
It's like getting bit by the spider in Spider-Man. Like that's how he gets his powers.
Billy Bob is gonna play. Rest in
Oh my
peace,
God.
Ron Lester.
Dude, amen. But no, like first off, just the most Mike Gundy thing I could possibly imagine is not like I'm sure he was like celebrating after he got headbutted by the counter. He's like, "Oh hell yeah, I don't have to be on camera for media availability. Like this is the best thing that could possibly happen to me." And then like turned on some OAN to just see what was going on in the world. But like on the flip side of that, like this game is super interesting against BYU because like yes, BYU has been one of the bigger surprises of the season. Yes, BYU has looked good. Do you trust BYU? Because I don't. Like I don't trust them at all. I think this is a good football team, better than we expected, but I still don't think like I still have a hard time marrying them as like a Big 12 contender, frankly. And like Oklahoma State, yes, they've fallen off, but Oklahoma State's coming off their bye week. What have we seen from Oklahoma State off the bye week under Mike Gundy consistently? They are a much better team coming out of that. I think there's a good possibility that we see a quarterback switch from Alan Bowman because Alan Bowman has been a problem with this offense as of late. And I
Gunner.
think it
Is he
could
still on
be
the
like
team? I don't know.
who could say? He might be, working at a law firm at this point because he's got enough years in college to have a law degree, frankly. So like who knows what Alan Bowman is doing after this? He's definitely not getting headbutted by a cattle like their head coach, though.
What do you think the name of the cow is? I don't think it's Gator. I wish it was, but I don't think it's Gator.
So I was actually thinking about this when we were talking about Gator the other day. My Gundy seems like a guy who just names his animals whatever animal they are. So that's cow. Like it's just cow.
Imagine if he's got like two twin calves and they grow up together. And he names them after his two running backs he used to hand the ball off to. So there's Thurman and Barry.
Love it. Beautiful.
I wrote about that. I'm like, he did hand the ball off to Thurman Thomas in like 87. Like, yes, he did. And then he handed it off to Barry Sanders and he ate a lot.
A lot. Yes. No, some would say that's all he did. But
He did lead the Big Eight in passing both of those years too. Like he's like an all conference player. Like
oh
he wasn't
yeah.
some scrub. He was the Midwest City Bombers.
He just happened to have Barry Sanders in the backfield, which, getting Barry Sanders the ball is not like the worst idea I've ever heard.
Uh, I gotta say this. He might be our favorite, like just personality in the game right now. I think he's eclipsed Drake. Drake's kind of in kicked back
Mhm.
a little bit this season. So it's
He's in timeout for
he's
sure.
in timeout. It's Gundy was two. Gundy's number one now. I don't even know who else is like who's on his who's chasing him like the tortoise and the hare.
Biff. Biff is chasing him,
Biff.
obviously.
Biff. Lanning's in timeout too.
Yeah, Lanning's always in timeout. Our boy, Sam Pittman and his rack of ribs, also always up there.
Out of this world, brother.
Out of this world.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Gundy getting headbutted by a cow. Like I want him up there like I'm gonna try to. I don't know what game would that would be. Like, I wish it was FS1. I wish Petros was on the field interviewing him afterwards.
Oh my
Like,
God, yes.
he's got like an eye patch on, which honestly is very Kansas for Rich Williams, Uncle
Oh,
Rich.
100%. No, absolutely need that in my life. And like, it's just, I think it's also like wildly appropriate that it happened coming off the bye week because, like, to me, that just means that, like, most coaches are using the bye week to like regroup and prep more. And Mike Gundy was like, I'm going to spend a little more time with my cattle. Like, I'm just going to, be alone with the cows and my thoughts.
I know your mom probably told you about this with your Uncle Rich who's in Kansas, the guitar player.
Yes.
I don't know if he lost his eye with like, cattle, but like it was traumatic, but he made the best of it. And didn't you find like his glass eye one time running around? Like, he thought it was a marble.
Yeah, dude, just shooting some marbles. And I was like, that's an odd looking one. What do you know about that? And Uncle Rich came in there and it's like, give me that, boy.
He goes, he goes, how long have you had my glass eyeball? Oh my God. I just assassinated Cody. Oh my God. That's the
Oh my God.
oh my
Deep
God.
breaths. Oh God.
Hold on.
Oh.
We're all just dust in the wind anyway, probably.
That's
Yeah.
right.
But I think we're both on the same page that like this is a game that Gundy wins.
It definitely feels that way. It feels like the kind of like the dead cat bounce type of game for what Oklahoma State season has been to this point.
Yes, we do have a name for that. It's the Dino Babers dead cat bounce.
Yes, sir.
We may be
Always.
saying that with Neil Brown a little bit too.
Yeah, just a little bit.
But I will say this before we move on to our penultimate topic and talk about our dear friend who's got his Hogwarts robes. We'll talk about that here in a second. You mentioned like BYU being undefeated. You're not trusting this. So I wrote this for fanside.com on Sunday when the AP poll dropped. I'm like, ranked too high. I'm like, I don't know if BYU is too high, but 13 just feels weird. It
Mhm.
feels unnormal. It doesn't feel like because we've seen Iowa State win this league or be in the mix of this league before with Matt Campbell. So it's foreign, if you will.
Mhm.
If they lose, how do you view BYU in the Big 12 landscape? I feel that like they clearly go behind Kansas State and Texas Tech behind Iowa State for sure.
Yeah, I think so as well because like I don't want to say what they've accomplished to this point has been smoke and mirrors because I don't think that's necessarily the case. But like, right now you're looking at the Kansas State win as kind of like their signature to this point. That game was
Mhm.
fluky as hell, man. Like that was not a 38-7 game script that we saw play out. Like it was turnovers, it was good field position, it was bounces of the ball, and like it made BYU's win look a lot more impressive. And again, credit to them for taking advantage of it. Credit them for getting to this point in the season. But like and I'm not trying to like disparage Kalani Sitake's team because I think that he's built a good program at BYU. Like this is a good program that we have to respect every time. And like the one question we had last year, which we saw play out, was okay, they're going into a conference. What's that going to look like? But now that they've kind of got their feet wet in that, it's very clear that they're a lot more comfortable with that. So like I'm very curious to see like what would happen thereafter. I don't think I would be ready to fully write them off. I think you're right. Like in my mental math, like, I would still have them behind Kansas State and Texas Tech, but like I still wouldn't be able to write them off quite yet either.
Yeah, they got the head-to-head over Kansas State. It was fluky. You do have the win over SMU very early as well. But I
Mhm.
think that like we end the year with Farmageddon, so that game is going to have major Big 12 implications. And if K-State wins that, that may knock Iowa State out, and then maybe you get a rematch in Arlington with K-State and BYU. That'll be fascinating. And the Texas Tech of it all, we don't really know. Yeah, I think if BYU loses, they're going to go down to like 20.
Yeah, I think that makes sense for sure.
And I don't know if it makes sense why we're going here, but we're going to Lawrence, Kansas for some Antonio Banderas Ball of the Week simply because Potter Lake beckons. Yes. Gonna do some more Wingardium Leviosa practice with Antonio. Two awful Big 12 teams with Kansas hosting Houston. two coaches we have a lot of respect for with Lance Leipold and Willie Fritz, but I think Antonio is going to be the only one up there in the wardrobe. In his wardrobe, he's going to be doing the spell like Professor Quirrell, and it's just going to be like, I see you, brother. What are you doing?
So I have some updated travel plans for this because I didn't clock this until we were about to come onto the show. This game is at Kansas City, Missouri. It's at Arrowhead Stadium. It's not even in
What?
Lawrence. Yes, this game's
Why?
being played at Arrowhead.
Rob Riggle, what'd you do, brother?
I have no idea. We're still gonna like for Antonio purposes, we're definitely still gonna have to go to Potter Lake for a little quick dip, but like then we gotta head over to Arrowhead, which talk about being the only person in the stadium. That stadium might not even be a quarter filled for a 1-5 Kansas team. Like no shot.
No, it's like you wonder if they're going to tear up. Like Chiefs Kingdom's going to be mad. You tore up our turf, and then Patrick Mahomes like tears his ACL because of this dumb college football game.
Right.
But Antonio did tell me um, that one reason why we said we will go to Potter Lake, but we will go to Arrowhead because Swifty.
Swifty. Oh, he's a big Swifty. I did he give you a friendship bracelet? He gave me mine and then he took it right back because he said he only had the one. So we probably actually both got the same friendship bracelet.
Carm is a boyfriend, I guess.
That's right.
Oh my God. So this is wild to even get him like we knew that we could sell him on Potter Lake and we could get him to go. But I don't know if I told you what I saw, what happened in Athens for Bulldog Bulldog. You know when Kirby Smart got really upset?
Mhm.
That's because Antonio got on the sidelines there and interfered.
It's all making sense now. It's all making sense.
He went up to he thought uh Ben Roethlisberger's on the sidelines. He's like Bulldog, and like no, that's Glenn Schumann.
And still Bulldog.
Uh, so we did survive Athens. Brandon Walker was screaming profusely at Antonio, and all he did was just go bulldog a bunch, and he
That just
survived
made
the.
Brandon Walker even madder, I think.
I know he tried to throw a bar stool at Antonio, and he dodged it like a train.
And then got flagged for unnecessary roughness.
Yes, yes, he did. It was still cooler than a Mets watch along party.
Absolutely, yeah. God, what a baseball game I had to cover last night. Jesus.
It's baseball season's over, and everyone's like Subway Series. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't even like Subway. I don't even like
Give
going on a Subway.
I yeah, whatever. Baseball's fun. We love baseball. We're big fans.
Bulldog. So yeah, with this big in Kansas City, he wants to find Rob Riggle because he wants to fight him because that's like his mortal enemy because
Of
that's who we're
course.
eventually going to replace Antonio with if when the day becomes too politically incorrect to keep him on this show.
That's right.
Holy moly.
Holy moly, indeed.
Um, Antonio also wants to eat burnt ends because pig or pig,
Pig,
no
yeah.
cow.
Whatever. He doesn't know the difference.
Yes, he'd eat a
It's
human
all
being if he was hungry enough.
it's all bulldog, man. Like what are we doing?
But I'm gonna take Kansas to win this game just because why would I ever pick Houston to do anything?
Well, I'll tell you why, because I'm picking Houston. So,
Oh, damn.
so I like the you mentioned it earlier. Houston beat TCU their last time out, and that does say quite a bit about TCU, no doubt. But that was also the first game with Zion Chris taking over for
Yeah.
Donovan Smith at quarterback. And I think this offense is just more functional. I think Chris is a little bit better of a dual threat than Donovan Smith is at this point in his career. And I think it just looked a lot better. And the other thing that really stands out to me is I think that, we both have a ton of respect for Lance Leipold, but the loss of Andy Kotelnicki has been massive for this team. And the offense has looked just pretty lifeless. And whether it was Jalen Daniels or whoever else at quarterback, like they just haven't had it on offense this year. Houston's defense has not been the problem, which is not a surprise for a Willie Fritz team, but like Houston's defense has been good. It was just with Donovan Smith at quarterback, they couldn't stop turning the ball over and they couldn't move the ball very well. Now that they have a little bit of ability to do that, I kind of like their defense to really shut down Kansas in this one.
Houston's also got this receiver whose last name's like Manjack or something. I'm like, who is that? Why am I all about this right now? He's got that Danny Woodhead. I'm trying really hard vibe about him, and I dig it, brother.
He's gonna be on Bill Poggi's staff in like 3 years for sure.
Yes, sir. So Lance Leipold's a very serious guy. El Antonio is just not a serious enough person, but Antonio tries to be as respectful as possible, except Rock Chalk. That was not that kind of ruined the thing there. But has he ever met Willie Fritz yet? Or is he excited about it?
I don't think he's gotten to meet Willie. And with a name like Willie Fritz, I don't think he's expecting the older gentleman that we're going to be meeting this week. So I'm a little worried that Willie Fritz might just like throat punch him, frankly.
The thing that he keeps telling me is, I said, we're going to meet Willie Fritz. He goes, One-Eyed Willie. And I'm like, he's not as old as One-Eyed Willie. He's also still alive, but like he's not a pirate. He's a
He's,
cougar.
he's not a
Rawr.
pirate.
He's a cougar. Rawr. Bulldog. And that's what I
R.
got. Now Antonio wants to go find that bear. And I don't think you can ride a bear around Kansas City because they're going to turn that thing into barbecue.
They'll turn anything into barbecue slash bulldog.
The only way that it's going to work is if he's riding Andy Reid into the stadium.
I mean, I think Andy Reid might be on board, quite frankly.
He's game for whatever. And I don't know if Andy Reid is a big fan of Midwestern progressive metal or classic rock, but we are. We're gonna do some Just Like Dover King with some Kansas.
Yeah, we are. Hell yes, we are.
Oh my God, this is gonna be so dumb. Everybody has the greatest hits or the best of Kansas, which was released in like 1982 on cassette. Everyone
Oh
has that.
yes.
So let's start with their signature song. They've got three, but their biggest one, "Carry On, Wayward Son." We always put mine there, but "Carry On, Wayward Son." Who is that for you? What game is that for you?
For me, that is SMU Stanford, who are carrying on as two new SEC or ACC
Yeah.
members, and trying to get through all the confusion and of the conference realignment. I've got SMU winning this one pretty handily in Stanford. Don't think it's going to be a house of horrors there. But yeah, that's where I'm going for this one.
It might be about the prodigal son, Rhett Lashley possibly returning to Miami if Mario fails.
That's right.
Kansas is a little bit biblical because Kerry Livgren was about that, and maybe he still is. I don't know if he's still with us, but Rich Williams still doesn't have an eye. But that's okay. He's
That's
got one. He's have two.
that's right. One-eyed Willie? Question mark.
Literally, his last name is Williams.
Yep.
Old dog.
Bulldog.
I've got TCU at Utah because there will be
Mm,
peace when you are gone, whether that be Cam Rising or Sonny Dykes, who I've got on the hot seat right now.
that's right. I have that game coming up later.
I've got Utah winning this game with Isaac Wilson because I think TCU just sucks hellacious ass.
Yeah, I mean, completely fair.
And I don't know if they're dust in the wind for you. They might be. They aren't for me. But who do you have for that?
Dust in the wind. I have a team that their playoff chances are going to be dust in the wind after Saturday. That's LSU Arkansas in Fayetteville because I'm with you. The Hogs are pulling off another upset. They're getting it done. I do not trust LSU, man. I just don't. And so, like, I think that Arkansas gets this win. LSU's playoff chances go kapoof, and we're done here.
The dust in the wind there for LSU. That's Brian Kelly putting seasoning on his poor boy sandwich.
What's this? Coming season.
Cayenne peppers coming. Cayenne peppers. Um, Atufa.
Red chala, red hot chala peppers.
Jambalaya. I don't even know how to spell beignets. I can't even break that down, but we're just gonna
That'd be a bagnet, probably.
bagnet, remoulade. Oh, I do
Oh
love
my
Cajun
God.
food. I don't
Cajun
love this
food's
LSU.
delicious,
I
bro.
don't love I don't love this LSU team, but that's great. I've got Alabama at Tennessee because all we are is dust in the wind. The loser of this game is going to go to a really dark place, and I think the dark place team, the loser, is going to be Tennessee. I'm going with Bama because Jalen Miller can
Okay.
actually throw the football and is not scared. Neither might
Okay.
be.
Different sides of this. I like it. I like it.
I don't know if it's the point of no return, but it's about sailing and stuff. So who do you have for a return?
Point of no return. This is where I have TCU Utah because I'm at the point of no return. What is the point of no return with Cam Rising? Because apparently he might come back for an eighth season, brother. What are we doing here? College football super senior is about to get more super, apparently. I've got TCU winning this one because I do not like, despite how bad TCU's defense is, I don't trust this Utah offense, man. They looked bad with Cam Rising. Granted, he looked a little compromised at times in the last game. Isaac Wilson has been fine, but not anything more than that. I do have at least a little bit of faith in the TCU offense. Utah's defense is down. I don't know, man. I didn't want to make a pick for this game, but I just wanted to make a Cam Rising joke, quite frankly.
You made a LinkedIn profile, Cameron R.
That's
What job has he had besides just being hurt?
what
Rehabilitation. I can rehab really well.
what did you do from 2017 to 2025? Mostly rehabbed.
I rehabbed, I grew my hair out, and I went Jack Kerouac at everyone's ass.
That's
God, that's good. Song for America. I love this song. It's just the most like progressive rock
did
song.
you do your point of no return?
No, I have not. No, I have not. I got so lost there. Yes. My point of no return, that would be USC at Maryland, because how long to the point of no return? These teams don't win in Big Ten. And I'm gonna go with Maryland because I'm gonna pick against Lincoln Riley for every game he's coaching here for the rest of the time.
Fair point. Can't argue with it.
Tortoise and the hare, really. He's the hare, and the tortoise is Michael Oxley, just
Absolutely.
the
Fear the
turtle.
tortoise.
Mike Tortoise Loxley.
That's
Yeah, this it's so hard. These songs are all over the place. Song for America. Who do you have for that one?
Song for America. I've got Georgia, Texas. This is where I have this game. The song is like basically hyping up America and like being on top of the land and stuff like that. It's basically what this game is to me. Whoever comes out of this game the winner, I'm probably going to view as the best team in the country. That's point blank period where I'm standing. So, song for America, it's Georgia, Texas. I'm sorry, Bueller.
That's
I
fine.
think Texas wins this game. I think that
Yes.
I think they just have a few more advantages. Again, I truly believe that this game is going to be close. This game is going to be closely contested throughout. But I think Texas just has the slight edge, especially in Austin, which I think is a big point in this game.
I've got that game coming up here shortly. I've got Nebraska, Indiana for this because Virgin Land of Forest Green, Dark and Stormy Plains, here life abound. So this is just untrodden territory for Indiana ever.
Hmm.
Nebraska since 2016. And it's also about manifest destiny. And I feel like the person who embodies manifest destiny more than anybody in college football would be Matt Rule because he loves
Hmm.
to. That man will suck all the oxygen out of the room if he could. Just you have 1 hour of
That's
oxygen left.
time to start the heavy breathing.
Breathe in, breathe out,
That
breathe
sounds like a challenge, brother. I'm going for it.
And I'm gonna go Huskers, man. I feel that Indiana's gonna play tight. I'm gonna go Nebraska to stave off playoff
Okay.
elimination.
Okay.
Who's gonna fight fire with fire, brother?
All right, I might break you with this one. I have the Charlotte 49ers going to Annapolis to play Navy because the troops are going to be in attendance in Annapolis. They're going to be there, all the cadets, and it's going to be, a raucous environment. And here comes Biff Poggi walking out with a cutoff, showing off the meat sleeves. And he's like, "You want to fight fire with fire, brother? I'm ready to take you all on. Let's go."
Fight fire with fire.
Probably singing that song as he walks onto the field with his meat sleeves hanging.
If it's not White Snake, it's Kansas.
Oh, for sure.
God, that is an image. I don't know if it's disrespecting the troops if you're being true to yourself.
Yeah, he's just, land of the free, home of the Biff Poachy.
They have a free home of the Biff, and this is Falstar.
Oh my God.
He's over there. He's over there with some like hellaciously bad body odor. He's like, "Thank you for your service," and it smells.
That's right. I also have Navy winning this game. Navy's really damn good, so give me Navy.
Yes, Navy's about to be bowl eligible and 6-0. Yeah, Charlotte 49ers. Crazy that this is actually it's crazy that they're playing because this is a conference game, which is wild.
This is a conference game. Charlotte also, to give Biff some credit, this team's not bad. Like they're not good, but they're not bad either.
I don't know. Did like Will Healy leave this program in like a bad place or something? I haven't been
He
able to figure
must
that
have.
out.
He absolutely must have. Like I think it might have. I don't even think it was like necessarily trying to leave it in a bad place. I think he was just bad at his job, quite frankly.
That's fair. And I don't think either of these coaches are bad at their job. I've got Georgia at Texas for fight with fire because Kirby Smart and Steve Sarkisian are very passionate. They live to fight with fire. Like Kirby shoving coaches, Sarkisian doesn't let do touching and everything like that. Emo head share. I'm going Texas. I'm just doing it. I don't.
Okay.
I'll be giddy or I'll be I'll feel validated. Either way, I win
Mhm.
unless the
Yeah.
Falcons lose on Sunday, but that's okay. Who cares?
Who cares?
Also, check out the shirt the Arizona State podcast got for me. It's the Atlanta Falcons. That might be Mike Vick. I don't know. Or Matthew
Love
Stafford. I
it.
haven't figured that out yet.
It's one of them.
Bulldog. Either way.
Bulldog.
And then our last song here. Let's hold on. Who do you have for that? Who's holding on?
So, look in the mirror. Tell me just what you see. Nebraska, Indiana, baby. What do you see with these two teams? Two teams that are not used to being here, two teams that are trying to hold on to the hopes that they built this season. I'm going with Indiana, man. I'm all in on Coach Sig. I think that, like I said earlier, the experience factor is something that really comes to mind here, especially with this game being on the road for Nebraska. I think the experience will really play in Indiana's favor. I also think the Indiana, more so than the offense, I think the Indiana defense is going to cause Nebraska some problems. Nebraska has not been able to run the ball, and I think they have the pass rush to get Dylan Raiola. But yeah, going with the Hoosiers, moving to 7-0 and keeping this thing rolling.
We disagree a lot this weekend. I love it. It's great.
Love it, man. I mean, that's the type of week it is, though. There's a lot going on this week.
Yes. And I think for me, for hold on, I got two teams holding on for dear life for their playoff chances. I've got Michigan at Illinois,
hmm
and I got Illinois winning this game quite comfortably. They're holding on to their playoff chances where I think Sharon Moore is holding on to his contract that he signed. Says, hey, you can't fire me. I actually signed this. And Santa Ona and Ward Manuel are just like, God, I hate you, Jim Harbaugh, for driving this thing in the ground.
They just hate watch every Chargers game and just yell at the TV.
There's got to be somebody out there who hate watches Chargers. Like, whenever I don't watch hockey, but I hate the Winnipeg Jets for Thrashers reasons. Hopefully they get to come back. So I just root against the Winnipeg Jets. That's my fandom.
Hell yeah. I mean, there's certainly some San Diegoans, however you say it, that watch the Chargers with, you know, not the kindest of eyes.
What about Tom DeLonge thinks about the Chargers?
It's probably in a Blink-182 song like Thinly Veiled.
Stay together for the kids.
That's right. Oh my God.
This was episode 118 of Fall Start. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter at the X at Buhler118. You can follow Cody Williams at the Sizzle20. You can follow the show at CFB Fall Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. If you like in the channel on YouTube, subscribe. Just let us know that you did. We'll give you a shout out on the next show. We'll answer any questions you have. We love fan engagement. Getting a lot of views, need a lot of more subscribers. And obviously on Apple, give us a 5-star review because we love that. I like 5-star reviews more than Apple or apples, to be honest with you.
Dude, absolutely. We're anti-apples, anti-Apple Cup, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't exist anymore, basically. So whatever. But no, we love the 5-star reviews. We love subscribers. And yeah, send us some questions, man. Like we like talking about whatever we want to talk about, but more importantly, we want to talk what you want to talk about, want to hear us talk about.
We get paid to answer your question. That's kind of what we do here.
Yeah.
I kid you not. So we're at an hour and 18 in this for on episode 118. So I have to bring this up. So this is Buhler 118. This is where this comes from. And I've never
Yep.
actually explained to you what that is.
You have
Why?
not, so I'm ready to hear it.
So obviously we're going to be going to they're going to do a Carmageddon next week for Iowa at Northwestern or whatever that is. So we're doing that for Carmageddon. So our former fan-sided colleague Mark Carmen once asked me this, like, what's the significance of this? And I'm like, so growing up, I played a lot of baseball. So I would play rec league. I was always Big John, big tall kids. So I was always like 11 or 12. So I wore
Yeah.
11 because odd number, I'm an odd dude. Who cares? And then when I played travel ball, there were bigger dudes. So eventually I got eight, and I adapted eight as my other number. So like I would wear eight, and then Marcus Mariota ruined it. So eventually I got like started getting emails, so it became 118 or 11-8, and then it became 118. Then it comes down to like, well, so we record this thing audio on a GarageBand at 160 beats per minute. That's what the song I wrote fits in. Standard time, our standard speed is 120. So this is just left of the dial, just a little bit
There
slower,
we
just a little bit
go.
dumber. And yeah, I think that's kind of cool. Plus, nobody else out there is going to do Bueller 118. So I basically know I get that on every single platform. That's I don't know
There
where
we
this
go.
is. I don't know if we're ever going to unpack what this is 20 means. But that's why it's Bueller 118.
I can give it to you quickly. When I was in college, I my Facebook name was Cody S. Williams and didn't have my actual middle name of Scott up there. And so I just lied to people and told people my middle name was Sizzle and it stuck. And so people started calling me Sizzle. And here we are.
I thought your middle name was Moss because I thought like that's like in your Gmail.
No, so that's what happens when you make your first email in fourth grade and your favorite football player at the time is Randy Moss. And so you just go Cody Moss.
Yeah, I think I had like BB fans. So people thought it was BB Mac, but it's supposed to be baseball. Like that was my first
I'm
email
a
address.
baseball fan. What do you
I like
mean?
baseball. What are you talking about? I don't know.
Baseball's been very, very good to me.
I don't know if I can make a Sammy Sosa joke to end this show, but this is false start.